All right, so we're doing system of linear equations, which means there are going to be two linear equations, x's and y's. It could be any two variables, but there's going to be two unknowns, two equations, and the goal is to solve for those unknowns. We saw briefly yesterday elimination, substitution. You can also do it with a graph, right? Graph is also pretty useful, or you need to know how to do it using a graph. It's very simple. You just find the POI if you know how to graph a linear line. This is like grade 8, 9. How do you graph a linear line? Let's say I want to graph y equals 2x plus 1. How do I go about doing this?
You start at 1.
Yeah, you start at 1, and then where do you go? The slope is 2, right?
You go up by 2.
You go up by 2, and then you go across by 1 right there. So that's going to be the second point. Well, you can do this easily if you're in the right form, if you're in the y equals mx plus b form. The second equation that we have, x plus 2y equals -8. How do we graph this? We don't know what the slope is. We also don't know where the y-intercept is. What would you do to graph this? Is it graphable? Probably, right? You can graph pretty much any, and you can always graph a linear line. So there's two ways to do this. You could either turn it into y equals mx plus b. So we have x plus 2y equals -8. What you do with this one approach is that you solve for y. So let's say I want to isolate y. I only want y on the left side of this equation. How do we isolate for y?
You subtract x.
You subtract x, so it becomes -x minus 8, and then you divide by 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get y is equals to -1/2 x minus 4. So we know our y-intercept is -4, 3, 4. We start here. And now notice the slope is negative. So instead of going up, you would go down. So you would go, slope is -1/2. You would go 1 unit down for every 2 units across, like that. And then you connect the dots. And if you do it right, this will be your solution wherever the points meet, wherever the two lines intersect. And that is -2 and -3. So that's the answer to this question, -2 and -3. And you are done. Cool?
Mm-hmm.
You can always do this using substitution elimination as well. But if the numbers are small, I guess they all take equal amount of time. This question, I think we've done this before. You want to think about this from the perspective of the Holy Trinity of distance, speed, and time. Distance is speed times time. Speed is distance over time, and time is distance over speed. If you go down, you multiply. If you go up, you divide. So those are the three equations. So here, let's read the question. It says, Ellen drives from her university in Kitchener, Waterloo, to her home in Smiths Falls. And this distance, oh, wait a second. And then she's stopping in the middle somewhere. She travels along one highway to Kingston. So let's say she starts at Waterloo, she goes to Kingston. Okay, there we go. So this is the pattern. So she's taking this highway first, and then she takes this highway second. The total distance is 450 kilometers. That's the distance. On the first highway, her speed is 100 kilometers per hour. On the second highway, her speed is 80 kilometers per hour. The question is, what is this distance from from Kingston to Smiths Falls? Let me just write this a little bit more legible. So this speed is 100 kilometers per hour, and this is 80 kilometers per hour. And the question is, what's the distance from Kingston to Smiths Falls? You understand the question?
Mm-hmm.
So how would we approach this one? What is our x and what is our y? It's up to us, really. It's always going to be up to us. So let's say this missing distance, k to s, is x kilometers. In terms of x, what's the distance from w to k? Remember, the total distance is 450.
450 minus x.
Yeah, 450 minus x. Now, they've given us time, and they've also given us speed. Let's come up with an equation for time. What's 4 hours, 45 minutes in terms of hours? As a decimal, what is 445? Is it 4.45? It is not 4.45. Think about it in terms of quarters. 15 minutes is a quarter of an hour, 0.25. 30 minutes is 0.5. What is 45 minutes in terms of hours?
0.75.
0.75. Remember, time is distance over speed. What is the time it takes for Ellen to go from W to K? We have both of those. We have both distance as well as the speed. So from W to K, the distance is 450 minus X, right?
Over 100.
Over 100. What about on the next leg? From K to S, what's the time?
X over 80.
X over 80. There we go, that's our equation. It's still a linear equation, it just has fractions. How do you solve this linear equation for x? Because the question's asking us for x. You have a fraction. So you want to take the LCD. Anytime you see fractions, take the lowest common denominator. What is the LCD between 100 and 80? You can think about it in terms of 10 and 8 as well. Just add a 0 at the end. What's the LCD between 10 and 8?
It's 80.
It's 40. So here it'll be 400. 80 would also give you the right answer. It's not wrong, but it's not the LCD. So you'll be dealing with bigger numbers. So here it would be 400, which means we're going to multiply this by a 4 and multiply this by a 5. Like that. So this is 1800 minus x plus 5x over 400 equals 4.75. Negative x and 5x's, they are like terms. So that will become positive 4x. Right, this is what we have right now. How do we solve this equation for x?
You multiply by 450.
Yeah. So in the denominator, I think it's 400. So 4.75 times 400, subtract 1800 divided by 4. So that distance is 25 kilometers. Which seems kind of low. Let me just double check. 4.75 times 400 minus 1800 divided by 4. Yeah, it's 25. And you're done. Cool?
Mm-hmm.
So this question, again, kind of tricky. Think about it in terms of this triangle here, distance, speed, and time. You're going to see this over and over again in maths and if you take physics in grade 11, 12. Let me see, actually. I think I did something wrong. They got 100. Yeah, I know what I did wrong. It's because negative 4x plus 5x is 1x. If you do this, you get 400. Yeah, you'll get 100 if you do this. Because this times this is 1900. So the distance was 100, not 25. I didn't add the x's, right? But the idea is the same. Let's try doing another question. We have two options for car rentals. We have Kelly's Cars with a K, and we have Rick's Rentals. What are the equations for both of these? Y will be your total bill, or the amount that you pay to individual company. It's going to be in the form of mx plus b.
Y equals 0.15x plus 95 for the first one.
Yeah. And then for the second one, it's very, very similar. It's going to be 26x plus 50. All right. Now the question says, which company charges less? How do we determine which one charges less? So for this one, let's think about it in this way. Kelly's has a higher y-intercept at 95, but the slope is less. It's less steep. It's more horizontal. Whereas Rick has a lower y-intercept, so the initial fee that he pays is lower, but it has a higher slope, so it's going to be more steeper. It's going to be more vertical. The higher the slope, the more vertical the line is. What happens at this point? Which one would you pick at this point?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, at that point, it doesn't matter. So to answer this question, we have to determine this point. And that'll give us the kilometers driven. So if Haley drives less than this kilometer, then you want to go with the green line. The green is Rick's. If Haley drives more than this POI, then you want to go with the black line. You want to go with cars because your goal is to minimize the bill, right? So you want to pick the line that's on the bottom. How do we find this point? How do we
You
find the
set the equations equal to each other.
right? That's it. So it's going to be 15x plus 95. On the other side, it'll be 26x plus 50. This is easy. This is 11x. Move this here. move this here. This will be 45. That is not going to be a nice number. 45 divided by 0.11. That is like 409 kilometers. So we know this is 409. So how would you answer this question? Which company charges less? So the way to answer this question would be if Haley drives 409, it doesn't matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
409 kilometer, they're the same, so it doesn't matter. Less than 409, you want to go with the green line because it's lower. So you go with cars. If you travel more than 409, you want to go with the black line because now that's lower. So this should have been Rick's. Less than 409, go with the green one, which is Rick's. Greater than 409, now black line is lower, so you want to go with cars. Did that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Just to be safe, in real life, you probably want to go with this one anyways, because you're going on a weekend trip. Yeah, usually, let me see. So the way it works is car rentals, right? This is a little bit of a tangent. You can rent cars through two means. One of these is like community shared car rentals. The other one, you'd get it from something like Enterprise or from the airport. This is like the airport car rentals. Enterprise, Evis, there's a bunch of these companies. These are all rental companies. So how do these work? With this one, you have, if you rent a car from the airport, let's say you're going to a different country or a different city or something, you fly in, you rent a car. This one will give you unlimited kilometers. So this one you pay per day, but it doesn't matter how much you drive, you get unlimited kilometers. But then the caveat is this one, you have to pay for gas. And usually these guys are $100 per day. Maybe a little bit more, less, usually around $100 per. If you get an SUV or something, it's going to be more. If you get a smaller car, like a sedan or something, it's going to be less, but $100. Whereas for this one, an example of this is ZipRide. There's a bunch of these companies, like tech companies. One famous one is, especially here in Ontario, we have Commune Auto. This one, you could, this one is very limited. It has a limited number of cars. So this one you have to book ahead of time, usually. But this one, you don't have to pay for gas. You don't have to pay for gas. Gas is included. So, and this one will cost you around $50 per day. So those are the different models. This one is slightly cheaper. But again, this one, you have to book ahead of time and the cars are not, it's community driven, so you're not gonna get the best cars. Cars are gonna be relatively older. This one, you'll get the best cars. It'll be newer cars, it'll be completely clean, but at the same time, it's kind of expensive. Yeah, so that's the thing. Usually people go with this one because it's easier to deal with. But with these guys, you have to put in a deposit. You have to put in a deposit of around $8,000. And you'll get this money back if you return the car. So this is that you so you don't steal it and go away. This one, there's no deposit. You can just take it. And that's the idea.
So you just hand over $1,000?
So what you do is when you go to pick up your car, you will swipe your credit card and $1,000 will be put on hold on your credit card. And when you return the car, that $1,000 hold will be removed. So it's
Okay.
so that you don't run away with the car, basically. And that's one thing. Another thing is insurance is extra. If you ding the car or something, you are gonna be responsible, but you can buy insurance for both of these. But that is gonna be extra. It's not super expensive. It's probably gonna be like $20 per day or something. And this is extra, but usually this is covered by your credit card. If you have a decent credit card, it'll cover car insurance up to a certain amount. It'll also cover, like, credit cards are very powerful these days. It'll also cover like lost luggage and maybe like medical issues and stuff. So you have to be careful with the credit card you go with. You want to read what benefits they offer. Credit cards, there's a lot of them. You don't pay any money. There's $0 annual fee. As you can imagine, these don't come with many benefits. They don't come with many benefits. But then you'll see like there'll be some Visa traveler's card or something like that, platinum card, something like those, that you have to pay annual fee. And the annual fee can be like $100, can be like $1,000 annual fee. But then these give you a bunch of benefits. So if you use those benefits, this will be cheaper in the long run than having to pay for this every day or whatever. So there you go. That's the car rental situation. Let me show you another way to do this graphically. So it says, do this by graphing. Let's say you don't want to take it in the form of y equals mx plus b. You don't have to. Let me show you another way to do this. You can always do that, find the slope intercept. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find my x-intercept and y-intercept for both of those equations. So remember, x-intercept is when y is 0, yeah? So if this is 0, what's the value of x? So this becomes 6x minus 12 equals 0, yeah? Because y is 0, x becomes 2. So when y is 0, x is 2. Similarly, y-intercept is when x is 0. So if this is 0, y will be negative 2.4. You divide 12 over negative 5. So x is 2, 0. So that's our point, and the other one is negative 2.4. I don't have a nice graph paper. Yeah, no, these are too big. But if you have an actual graph paper, you will see where the 0.4 is exactly. Here we're just gonna have to approximate. So negative 2.4 will be somewhere here. So let's say this is our equation for the first one. So that's how you can graph an equation if you don't want to take it in the form of mx plus b. Similarly, for the second one, if y is 0, x will be 1, and if x is 0, y will be negative 0.4. So we have 1, 0, and then we have 0 and negative 0.4. So somewhere there. And then you want to find where they intersect right there. That appears to be 1, 2, 3, and 1. So 3 and 1 is the answer to that question. So you don't have to take it in the form of mx plus b if you use this approach. Cool? Find the x and the y-intercept by plugging one of them 0. X-intercept is when y is 0. So this is your x-intercept. When y is 0, you set this as 0. Disappears completely, and vice versa. So we have a trail mix question again, not terribly difficult. So what are our equations? So we have two equations here. One of them, let me give you a hint. One of them will be the weight equation. The unit for this will be in kilograms. The second one will be the dollar equation. What are our two equations here? And the numbers that we're interested are these four.
X plus Y equals 80.
What's the other one?
18x plus 10x equals 12.5 times 80.
Right. So there we go. Those are our equations. And I think the best way to solve this, definitely not a graph. No one cares about the graph. What is this point? I don't know. Graph is not the way to go for this one because the numbers are too big. This is like 900 to 1000 something. That's exactly 1000. So graphing is not the way to go for this one because the slope of this is like 1 and we're going into the 1000, so the scale will be all messed up. Substitution is the best method for this one. So let's say x is equals to 80 minus y. So for substitution, you solve for one of the variables from the first equation, and you're gonna plug this as x into the second equation. So this becomes 18 times 80 minus y, right? Plus 10y equals, that's 1000. Does that make sense, the substitution thing?
Mhm.
Now what do we do? If we want to solve this equation for y, it's a linear equation.
You open the brackets.
Yeah, you'd open the bracket, so it'll be 18 times 80, that is 1440, minus 18y plus 10y equals 1000. This will be negative 8y. So it'll be negative 8y equals negative 440. So 440 divided by 8 is 55. So y is 55. That means x is gonna be 80 minus 55. That's 25. And you're done with this question. Easy as that. So Arthur is driving from Ottawa to Temagami. The distance is 393 kilometers. He's going through two roads. He goes from O to N first at a speed of 70 kilometers per hour, and then from North Bay to T at 50 kilometers per hour. The total time it takes him is 6 hours. The question is, what's the distance from North Bay to Temagami? Cool. We did a question like this just earlier. Do you remember how we set it up? So again, this is the holy trinity of distance, speed, and time. Let's focus on time because they've given us 6 hours. It's a nice flat number. So the total time it takes for him is going to be 6 hours. This includes the time from O to N, and then it includes the time from N to T. The formula for time is distance over speed. If this is x, what is the distance from O to N? in terms of x?
393 minus x.
Right, 393 minus x. So what's the time it takes for him to go from O to N?
It's 393 minus x over 70.
Right. And similarly, the other one would be x over 50. And we're solving for x, that's the question. So we have a linear equation, again, looks weird, complicated, it's really not. You have a fraction. How do you deal with fractions?
You find the common denominator.
Yeah, so 70 and 50, what's the common denominator? It's the same as 7 and 5, and then you add a 0.
3,500.
Ooh. So that's not wrong, but it's too big. That would not be the LCD. That would be a CD, would not be an LCD. It's 350. That'd be the smallest one. You could do 3,500, but then you'd be multiplying this by 50, and then you'll get a huge number. You want to deal with small numbers. So it's 350. Multiply this by 7. Multiply this by 5. So, let's try to come up with this. What is 393 times 5? The way to think about this, I'm going to rewrite 393 as 400 minus 7 times 5. I'm doing this in my head. 400 times 5 is 2,000. 7 times 5 is 35, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 2,000 minus 35 is 1965. You can always use a calculator. But like I said, some exams, they won't let you use a calculator. So that's how you want to think about it. You can always do this, but this I think is a little bit too dumb at this level. This always works as well. But the other method, you want to think of it in terms of the closest hundreds or tens. That's the most efficient way. So you get 1965 plus 2x. 6 times 3 is 18. So we have 1800 plus 6 times 50 is 300. So we have 1800 plus 300. That's going to be 2100. So we have 2x is equals to 135. So x is 67.5. And that's the final answer for this question. Just comes from the fact that time is distance over speed. And I think that's the best way to do this. And you're done. So this one, common question. Just remember that the triangle, the trinity, distance, speed, and time. If you want to solve for time, distance over speed. If you want to solve for speed, distance over time. If you want to solve for distance, speed times time. It's only the distance you multiply, the other two you divide. Here we have a percent question. So 6 cups of coffee. So there's 6 coffee and a dozen muffins. Or we can just say 1 dozen muffin. So 1 dozen muffin initially costs $15.35. The price of the coffee goes up by 10%. The price of muffins goes up by 12%. Now the new cost, 6 cups and 1 dozen, is $17.06. The question is, what's the new price of 1 cup of coffee and a dozen muffins? So we need to find what C is individually and what M is individually. Okay. You're gonna get two equations. The first one will be the old combination, where the price is 1535. The other equation will be the new combination after the price has increased, and that adds up to 1706. What are our two equations? So think about it this way. X is the price of, you could do it
Is the
both ways.
first one just x plus y?
No, it's not, because that will be quantity. You want dollars, because you have dollars on the right side. It'll be 6x plus 1y. 6 coffee prices, okay?
Mm-hmm.
X is the old price of coffee, and Y is the old price of the dozen muffins. So it'll be 6x plus Y equals 1535. The new one will also have 6 and a 1. But if the price goes up by 10%, let's say initially the price was 1. If it goes up by 10%, what's the new price? It'll be 1 plus 0.1. It'll be 1.1. So the old price was X. Price increased by 10%. So the new price will be 1.1. The old price was Y. Price increased by 12%. What's the new price? You just add it to 1 as a decimal. It'll be 1.12. Let's say you have $100. You made 10% interest. Your new price will be 110. Let's say you made 15% interest. Your price will be 115. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You add the decimal as a percentage. You add that percentage as a decimal to a 1. That'll give you the new price. So we have these two equations. How do we solve this equation? Do we graph it? Probably not. You could, I guess. What would be the best way to solve this? If you can isolate for either x or y in any of the equations, substitution will be best. So if you look at the first equation up top, we can isolate that for y, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can make y is equals to 1535 minus 6x. And now we're going to replace this y with that. So 6 times 1.1 is 6.6x plus 1.12 times 1535 minus 6x equals 17.06. Looks nasty, bunch of decimals, but again, we have a calculator. Let's just a plug and play here. How do we solve this equation for x?
You open the brackets.
Yeah, you're gonna open the bracket, so it becomes 6.6x. These you can't do it in your head. 1535, that'll be 17.192 minus 6 times 1.12, that is 6.72. X is equals to 17.06. We have like terms, that is going to be negative 0.12x. Move this to the other side, 17.06 minus 17.192. That is negative 0.132. divide both sides by negative 0.12. The answer, X, is $1.1. So this, again, remember, X was our initial cost. Our new cost of coffee, let me just find the old price of Y as well. So the old price of Y will be 15.35 minus 6 times 1.1. So a dozen muffin costs $8.75. These are the old prices. The question's asking us for the new price. How do we find the new price? What do we multiply 1.1 by? The answer is right here. For coffee, you multiply it by 1.1 because the price went up by 10%. So it'll be 1.1 times 1.1. It'll be 1.21. So this is the new price of a cup of coffee. For the muffins, you multiply it by 1.12 because the price went up by 12%. So it'll be 8.75 times 1.12. That'll give you 9.8. There you go. So these are the new prices.
Mm-hmm.
And you are done with this question. So this one's slightly tricky because you need to know how to deal with percentage. Like when it goes up and down, what's the new value? It's always going to be like this. Let's say your thing costs $12. The price went up by 38%. What's the new price? Well, it's going to be 12 times 1.38. That's going to be new price. You add this to 1.
Mm-hmm.
And if it went down, as you can imagine, you would subtract. So it'll be 1 minus 0.38, it'll be 0.62. Let's look at this one. We have denim and cotton fabric. We don't know how much it costs. So that's automatically going to be X and Y. X is the price of 1 meter of denim. Y is the price of 1 meter of cotton. So you're going to get two equations. He bought 3 meters and 5 meters. The bill was 22. And then he bought 6 meters and 2 meters and the bill was 28. What are the two equations?
3x plus 5y equals 22.
Yeah, 3x plus 5y equals 22. What about the other one?
6x plus 2y equals 28.
Right. So how do we solve this system of equation? Substitution would always work as well, but I don't know if that's the most efficient in this case. Let's use elimination. Elimination requires you to have the same coefficient for either x or y, okay? Either x or
Mm-hmm.
y. So we have a 3 here, we have a 6 here. How do we make this 3 a 6? What do we multiply this by?
2.
2. So this multiply the entire equation by 2. So that becomes 6x plus 10y equals 44. And now we have the same coefficients. The signs are the same. Do we add or subtract?
Subtract.
Subtract. So we get x's disappear. 10y minus 2y is 8y. And again, this sign applies to the entire equation. 44 minus 28 is 16. So y is 2. And then you can plug this into any of the three equations to solve for x. So I'm going to plug it in there. So this becomes 3x plus 5 times 2, 10 equals 22. 3x is 12. That means the price of x is $4. So x is 4 and y is 2 using elimination. How much will 8 meters of denim and 5 meters of cotton cost? Well, we know this is denim, so 4 times 8. And we know this is cotton, so 2 times 5, that's gonna be 10 plus 32, that's gonna be $42. And you are done with this question. Did that make sense? See if there's anything you did not understand. We came up with the equations. This one, we chose to do elimination because we couldn't isolate for x or y in one step. But substitution works though. You're just gonna have to deal with fractions if you can't isolate for x and y, and it's never fun dealing with fractions. So I think elimination is the best approach for this question. You're gonna be seeing this in class, elimination substitution. So now we have a triangle in the form of 3 linear equations. The question is to find the vertices and the area of the triangle. Could be a fun question. So let's draw a grid. Let's draw it straight. All right, so how do you graph y equals 2? The first equation there.
It's just a horizontal line.
Yeah, it's just a horizontal line that goes through 2. So it'll look like this forever. 4x minus 2. So we know our y-intercept is -2. We start here, and then we go 4 units up. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we go 1 unit across right there. So this is going to be 4x plus 2. And then finally, -2x plus 10. We start at 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Do we go up or down?
Down.
Down. We go down 2 units. Across 1 unit. So right there. And this is your triangle. I mean, the only triangle you can get is this one right here in the middle. So the coordinates are 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, 2 for this point. I can call that A. This point will be 1, 2. Can call that B. And this point will be 1, 2, 2, 6. All right, we have the 3 points. How do we find the area of this triangle? The area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. Do we know the height and the base of this triangle? What do you think? And the answer is yes, we do. You see the height is this. That's your height. Because it's perpendicular, right?
Mm-hmm.
The altitude of a triangle, the height of a triangle always has to be perpendicular. So that's going to be your height, which is 1 unit, 2 unit, 3 units, 4 units. So the height is 4 units. How many units is the base?
3.
3 is right. 1, 2, 3. So height is 3. Base is 3. Divide that by 2. The answer is 6 units squared. And you're done. Let me show you a dumb way of solving this. We don't really need anything else. I don't know if this is gonna work. But what I'm thinking is, notice we have this point and this point. I'm gonna turn this into a parallelogram. So this point is 1 unit across and 4 units up from here. Triangle is half of a parallelogram. So for this guy, it's pair. This is a pair. 1 unit across and 4 units up. 1 unit across and 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we have a parallelogram. Does that help us? What's it? Yeah, no, it does not help us. If you use this approach, it just complicates things, so never mind this. But if you do want to use this, it does work. Let me show you how you would use this approach. You're going to have to use the distance formula. We know the area of a parallelogram is length times width. We know the width is 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, so we know this is 3 units. But what is the length of this parallelogram? You're going to have to use the distance formula, which says the distance between any 2 points is the difference between their x values squared plus the difference between their y values squared, like that. So this becomes 1 plus 16. That's root 17. So that's the distance from here to here. And what are we trying to do? We're trying to find the area of the triangle. Area of triangle is equals to the area of parallelogram divided by 2. So you can do the area of the parallelogram will be length times width divided by 2, like that. So that's another approach you can use. But this is, again, it's overcomplicating things. It's because we knew the height of this triangle. If we didn't know the height of the triangle, then this is probably the method we would have used by finding the side length using distance formula. But yeah, for this question, just use this approach, I think, and that's the best way. Let's look at this. We have 2 types of light bulbs. We have a regular one. You've probably seen this, like that. And you have a fluorescent, which has some sort of a gas inside it, like a neon gas or something. Cost $3.99 to buy. All right, well, what are our 2 equations? Both of them are going to be cost equations, where y is the cost and x is the hours. It's pretty straightforward. It's going to be 0.004x plus 65. The other guy will be 0.001x plus $3.99, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is for the regular, this is for the fluorescent. Which one is better? That's the question. And this is kind of like the rental car question, where the regular has a lower y-intercept, but has a slope that's 4 times as much. Fluorescent has a way higher y-intercept, but has a slope that's less steep. So this is for fluorescent, this is for regular. That's where they meet. So how would we answer this question? Which one is better? You want to find where they intersect, right? Because at that point, it doesn't matter. So you set these 2 equals to each other. It'll be 0.003, 3.99 minus 0.65 divided by 0.003. So that number there is 127 hours. So how would you answer this question? Which one is better? If you're using the bulb for 127 hours or less, you want to go with the regular one, right? At 127, it doesn't matter. So if you go less than 127, go with regular. If you light it for more than 127 hours, go for fluorescent.
Mm-hmm.
And at exactly 127, there's no difference. This one is better for the environment, so you should probably always go with this one because its lifespan is way longer, like LED bulbs and whatnot, their lifespan is way longer than regular. So these would die within like a few thousand. This can give you over 10,000 lifetime hours of electricity. So this will be less e-waste as well. Not only is it more efficient over long term in terms of costs, it's more efficient in terms of it going to waste or it dying out. So always go with these guys. This is a better investment for sure. All right, let's call it the day for there.
Okay, thank you.
See ya.